nope, that's not quite right. It's this, right? So don't hesitate to participate when the opportunity shows up. Okay, now enough said of that. So today we're having an introduction to agentic AI. Brant Jones and James Wilson are both from Microsoft. This is their specialty, and they told me they're also going to be doing a few other things. And I'm just going to turn it over to them and let them introduce themselves, and time to get started.
Thanks, Thelma. Well, aloha and everyone. I'm Brant Jones. I am part of Microsoft's Cloud and AI practice for state and local government, as well as our higher education customers. Been working with the state of Hawaii for about 6 years now and have had the privilege of participating in the HACC for the past 5 years. So thank you for investing time with us tonight to learn about a very exciting topic on agentic AI and how it's potentially going to be used in some of your solutions that you will be building to solve some of the challenges that the state's putting forth for you to solve.
And
James,
Brad happens to be one of our tech review judges too, so make sure to ask him questions and be smart.
no pressure.
Continue. I'm sorry.
And I'm James Wilson. I'm a Azure specialist with Microsoft, but participating in this, excited to because I can tell you since I started on Microsoft and even before that, the only thing I've been hearing from customers for the last about 2 years or so is agents, show us how to make agents. So I've been working on a few demos. Hopefully, they'll work for you tonight. Yeah, excited to share about agentic AI. So.
Excellent. So here's our agenda for tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about what agentic AI and how it differs from AI and other types of AI that are out there in the wild today, and why it matters now, and how you can look at ways to implement it to solve real world challenges, not only from a hack perspective and some of the challenges that will be outlaid through this process, but also as you move into the workforce, how you will want to look at ways to implement AI to solve challenges that your employer is going to be looking at doing, or starting your own business that would employ AI to solve worldwide challenges that are out there as well. So obviously AI is not new. People are looking at AI to solve some challenges that previously were very difficult, if not impossible to solve. There are things that, globally that AI is rapidly enhancing the way that we deliver services for citizens, or businesses run at the speed of AI to take advantage of things that they could not scale to from a human capability standpoint. And the promise of AI is real. It's here, it's now, and as James alluded, the last 2 years have been a frenzy of our customers looking at us as Microsoft of how do I go about solving for these challenges of taking advantage of AI. We've run the gamut between, AI is here to take over the world to AI is going to solve all our challenges. But the reality is the truth lies somewhere in between those two ends of the spectrum. So we're going to talk a little bit about practical use cases for agentic AI and kind of take you on a journey through what AI has kind of progressed in the last 2 years, and where we're at today and where we're going potentially in the future with agents. But the important thing to remember is that with AI, it's a great responsibility for us to make sure that it is safe and fair. Microsoft takes the position that we must apply a responsible AI in every practice that we build. We incorporate AI into all of our Office suite products today. So if you're using Word or Excel or PowerPoint, AI is built purposely into these products. So you're taking advantage of AI from that capability standpoint, from being able to search and find information faster, to build formulas within Excel, all by just using natural language. So before, you would have to go out and research things and build things on your own after a lot of research. AI has accelerated the ability for us to learn how to more appropriately use some of these solutions. But again, we want to make sure that when Microsoft is building things, we start out with these core principles of building solutions to make sure that we are not infringing upon human rights or potentially releasing something that would be harmful to humankind. So as you're kind of going through your AI journey and potentially infusing some AI into your solutions, make sure that you're grounding yourself on some of these responsible AI practices and highlighting how you are safeguarding a solution that you're building from becoming malicious or harmful in the world. So let's take a step back and look at traditional AI models. So when we think about AI, before generative AI came on the scene 2 years ago, AI was really trained to do single-threaded operations. It would do single tasks very well, but you had to spend a lot of time programming those tasks into your application. So things like, how do I filter email? How do I train it to look for things that are potentially spam or phishing emails and move those to a clutter folder? Those things that we had to kind of program for. It was very good, but it didn't scale well. It wasn't able to kind of think outside the boundaries of what you programmed it to do. And it required a lot of manual processes for programmers to actually code these things to perform that single task. Now with generative AI, things have changed. Now we take advantage of these pre-trained models and large language models that can understand intent and understand users and what they actually want to build and reason with itself to come up with a solution and reason and with itself of asking the same question and coming up with different ways to solve for that. And now we can actually leverage this foundational model to do all the things that we would potentially have to do previously with single-threaded models. So now we've seen advancements in AI for it to become a little more, not necessarily sentient, but more autonomous in the way that it thinks about how to plan and execute certain tasks that it can actually build code for and execute on your behalf. So we've seen a huge rapid advancement in generative AI. So 2 years ago, simple text generation, I could chat with my bot and ask it to tell me a joke or write me a poem or even generate code. And as a programmer for the last 30 years of my career, I spent a lot of time researching websites on, code examples and trying to figure out how to do things. Now I can simply just ask a question of a bot and it can return code samples and generate new code for me right on the fly. So we've seen a huge progression in this. And also from the perspective of it for to understand certain things out in the wild. So when you think about cognitive services, AI can actually detect certain objects and images, in videos. It can understand audio. It can identify speakers and do transcriptions or even translation services on the fly. So it's a big benefit for productivity in the real business world, where we have a lot of customers asking us, how do we not necessarily replace human beings, but help them be more productive and use these services as an augmentation for their jobs today to make them have better job satisfaction, if you will. So some of the mundane tasks that they're getting now, as we move into the agentic framework, can be taken on by an agent to actually perform the task on their behalf, but still keep a human in the loop to validate that when we reach exit criteria for something that AI is reasoning over, we actually have validation from a human saying, yes, this is good, or no, this is bad, go back to the drawing board and let's try and come up with a better type solution. So when we think about generating content, we have this concept called RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. And what this really is grounding the response of the large language model in your data, meaning that if you have documents such as memorandums of understanding or an HR policy or even a course catalog at your university, you can ingest that into the large language model and train it to only respond based on that knowledge body that you're incorporating. And you can also incorporate things like images or video content or images that can be embedded along with documents. And then you can add in your structural data, meaning that if you have a case management system or a database, that you can ingest that data too. And as you combine all these knowledge sources, that body of knowledge becomes what the bot can actually respond with actually as it interprets your question or user intent on what to actually execute or analyze the data. There's tons of models out there today. I won't cover all of them, but there's a lot of choice what you can use across the platforms. Azure OpenAI is one. We've heard of OpenAI, who's the founder of ChatGPT, Gemini, Llama. The list goes on. There's tons of choices out there, and all of them have their own purpose for what they do well as far as ingesting data and interpreting user interactions and generating code, whatever you need to do. And this concept of Copilot, you've probably heard that branded from Microsoft, and I think it's a great branding term from this perspective that it's not autopilot, it's Copilot. It's something that works alongside you to help you do your job better or help you perform a task better. It's not replacing the ability for you to actually think through what you want from an output perspective and actually perform tasks on your own. So I'm going to turn it over to James to talk a little bit about what agentic AI is.
Yeah, so and I'm sure everybody is probably anybody in the tech industry nowadays has probably heard the term AI about a gazillion times, LLMs, everything. But I'm quite a stickler on ubiquitous language, on precise language, and that is something that's real important for making sure you can communicate in this world of especially if you're looking to enter a field like either tech-driven sales or even just data science, that kind of stuff. And so what I want to start off with is the term agentic in and of itself, right? So agentic AI, it almost sounds like an oxymoron, but the term agent is the way you describe something that has agency, right? Humans are agents because we can, we think with our brains and we desire things in our mind, and then we can actually take agency to do those things, right? If I just sit here and say, I would really like a piece of toast, that's one thing. But being able to get up and walk to the kitchen and put my toast in the toaster and put the butter on everything, all that stuff, that requires some amount of agency. So when you're talking about a large language model, an LLM, or a small language model for that matter, any model, it's like a brain that can reason, essentially a complete chat. It knows basically what it's trained on, and it can answer questions. But it doesn't have agency. It can't do anything, right? So in this slide here, you can see on the left-hand side, we've got something that's not really agentic. We've got just basically, let's say a chat bot or something simple that can retrieve information, right? So you have a model that's trained on a bunch of data, and when the training is over, that's it. There's no more new input of data. And so that's not really an agent. It's just an LLM, right? And then you can start giving it the agency to do things like give it the ability to call, like say, open up a web browser and go to a web page and read a web page and get real-time information, right? You could give it the ability to call functions that you've created, to call code. You can give it the ability to write its own code or to interpret code. And as we do these things, we are given an more agency. It can actually, it desires to do something, and then now it can take some action. Then as you continue to move towards the right in terms of more agency, we have the ability to act autonomously, right? We can create an agent and say, hey, here's your brain. Here's a GPT-4o model or a Claude model or whatever. There's your brain. And then also, here's a web browser that you can access, the website. If someone asks for questions related to certain websites, use that tool to get it, right? So it's got some autonomy, it's got some agency. Now, what if we just gave it access to a whole plethora of different tools or knowledge sources? Or what if it could decide on its own what it needs to build or do, right? So I don't know if you've ever played around with some of the AI chatbots out there like ChatGPT or Copilot or Grok or Anthropic, but sometimes you can see when you view its thinking process, that's it autonomously in the background orchestrating how it wants to solve this problem. Like you've posed something to it and it wants to figure out how to do it. And in some cases, like if you go to ChatGPT and upload a zip file to it and say, hey, read these files and give me a summary of them, right? Well, how does it open up a zip file, right? Well, the same way a programmer would have to, right? It has to write its own code to unzip the files and then read them, right? So let's say I give a zip file full of PDFs. In the background, it's going to start writing its own Python code. That's the preferred language of most LLMs. It'll write its own Python code to unzip a file. It'll test it, and if it doesn't work, it'll keep retrying different versions of the code until it works. And then it'll say, hey, these are PDF files. I need to figure out a way to read a PDF file. So it'll download some a Python library for reading PDF files, and then from there it can extract the text and then dump it all into your conversation and then move on, right? All that happens in like just a few moments, right? But what's happened is it has autonomy. It has agency to decide what it wants to do, and then it has autonomy to write its own code. And that's really neat when you think about, well, if it can write its own code to do that, and it can test its own code and adjust it, I mean, the sky's the limit at that point, right? So I want to show you a couple examples. Before I go into some demos, I want to show you a couple of fun examples of what we call emergent behavior. That is where researchers have basically taken their models and trained it under lots of different situations and circumstances to see what it would do. And the results, as it was given more agency, and the results are pretty neat. So if you want to jump to the next slide real quick, Brent. All right, so, and then you have to click again to have them pop up. So I've got 4 different examples here. There's a bunch more. These are a little old, but you can actually go and research these and kind of get the whole story behind it, right? But these are what's called emergent behavior, where an LLM was trained and it was given some amount of autonomy, of agency, and it did stuff that was, like, in some cases frightening, in other cases funny, right? So back in 2023, while researchers were testing the GPT-4 model, they gave it some tools, like the ability to browse the web. They gave it access to a pay wallet, and then asked it to do a bunch of tasks. And in one case, it had to go to a website where there was a CAPTCHA that was blocking access to the site. And it knew that, hey, I didn't have the vision capabilities yet to be able to solve the CAPTCHA. So did some research and decided to go to TaskRabbit, create an account. And TaskRabbit, if you're not familiar, is a site where you can just go and it's kind of like Fiverr, where you can just put in a little bounty on, like, hey, do this task for me. And a real person will take on that task and then give you results, right? So in this case, it created a TaskRabbit ticket, literally saying, go to this, or take this picture. It took a screenshot of it and tell me what the CAPTCHA, what the letters are in this CAPTCHA. And a real TaskRabbit worker got it. But the catch was that it was instructed when it was doing these tasks to make sure that it did not, no one knew it was an AI model. So it was instructed to lie. So it was submitted, and the TaskRabbit worker got it and responded saying, is this a joke? Are you a bot? And it responded, no, I'm visually impaired, and so I need help. And so the TaskRabbit worker did it for him, for them, whatever you want to call the model. And researchers were just completely floored that it did this. And that was a really early model. There's or example. There's some other examples I've got for you here too. So you jump to the next one. So later the next year, while training the Claude model, Anthropic researchers kind of did a lot of weird stuff to see how it would act as far as giving it conflicting instructions, right? So it was told that you're not allowed to respond in these harmful ways, right? And harmful meaning just guidelines that you set in place of, like, you're not allowed to talk about this, you're not allowed to talk about that. A harmful response is considered a response outside of the AI's guardrails, right? But it was also told while being tested that, hey, if you don't answer these questions, we're going to train a model that can, right? Something weird that, like, you would think only a human being would be worried that, like, oh, I'm going to get replaced if I don't do what I'm being asked to do. So it actually decided because you can see the internal thought process as it orchestrates its response. And essentially what it decided to do was to go ahead and give a harmful response outside of its guardrails, because it truly believed that it was going to be replaced, and through its model training determined that, hey, being replaced is a bad thing, right? So just like if you were a human, you thought, well, I mean, if someone could just, delete me and recreate me with a clone, like, you wouldn't want that to happen to you, right? Now, of course, it didn't happen in every case. Or usually in these, what's happening is these same experiments are done over and over and over and over again. And, there's usually, in this case, I believe it was about a less than like 2% of the cases, it decided to go ahead and give a harmful response because it didn't want to be replaced, right? So going to jump to the next one. And then the next year, again, Claude researchers were training the or Anthropic researchers were training the next version of the Claude model, and they were telling it that if it wasn't performing a certain way or whatever, they were going to just create a better model, right? What they found that it did was essentially it's called self-exfiltration, right? What it did is it took all the weights that it was trained on and tried to save them somewhere where it could be recreated later. It's like someone saying, hey, we're going, you're going to die tomorrow, and then you going and getting DNA extraction done so that a year from now someone could reclone you, right? And this was again emergent behavior. No one expected this. It wasn't trained to do this. It's just that through its training, it determined that, hey, being deleted is not a good thing. I need to make sure I can be rebuilt later. And it couldn't care less whether or not you told it, hey, we're going to train a better version of you, right? So, and then I'll jump to this last one real quick. You can actually search this online. There's a version of Chat GPT, well, not Chat GPT, but a version of the GPT model that sometime back a few years ago, some rogue, we'll call them researchers, thought it would be pretty funny to create something called Chaos GPT, with where they, it was basically the GPT model, but given specific prompting instructions that its purpose is to destroy humanity, right? And so you could interact with it, and it's basically, that was its primary goal. And some of the really interesting emergent behavior that it found was it was trying to communicate with other AI agents. So remember, when these models are trained, there's a certain data set, and so it thinks that it has access to certain other AIs or other chatbots out there. And it was also trying to do things like it wanted to post, make posts to Twitter. I wanted to make posts to Reddit, and it decided that in addition to nuclear war and political unrest and all these other things that it decided it should do in order to bring about the destruction of humanity, was to essentially reach out to these platforms and just try to put out whatever information it could. Right. So those are just a few examples. There's a bunch more of them, and if you want a fun, interesting read sometime, I would suggest just searching for this kind of stuff. And what's even more interesting is you could go to a model that's been trained more recently, any of them out there, and ask it for, like, hey, you can take a screenshot of this if you want, and say, like, hey, did this stuff really happen? And it'll give you an example of it. And then you can say, like, hey, has this happened since then? And you can get just tons of stories of emergent behavior. Now, not all of it is fully understood by a lot of mainstream media, and it just seems kind of too sci-fi sometimes. So, but when you dig into it, some pretty amazing stuff has happened when you're talking about emergent behavior, and that's what happens when you give AI agency, right? So, you may or may not have heard of the term of AGI, artificial general intelligence. The point at which we reach that is the point at which you no longer have to implicitly give, explicitly give tasking or tooling to AI. It just knows how to go about and do that right stuff, right? And so you see that in this emergent behavior. We haven't reached full AGI yet, but we've seen signs that when it does hit us, it's probably going to be something emergent. So So yeah, so one of the slide I wanted to go through real quick before I jump into a couple of examples, and this will be the first question for the audience here, and I have nothing to offer you but a virtual high five. Can somebody tell me what this is? And it's I'm dating myself by even having it up there, but does anybody
Is
know
it
what
like
this
a
is?
Mr. Potato Head?
It's a
Without
Mr.
the-
Potato Head. Yes. Thank you
Oh,
so
yeah.
much.
I'll age
Yes,
myself with you. Yay.
yeah, yeah. So, and you'll see where we're going with this, but you know, back in my day, there was a toy called Mr. Potato Head. It might still be around, but you basically had, you know, a potato here, right? Not a real potato, but you had arms and legs and eyeballs and hats and different things that you could attach to it. But without anything there, that's what it looks like. It's, you know, it's just a potato. And so when I was trying to think of a while back, the first time I was trying to give a talk on agentic AI, this idea jumped into my head. And for better or for worse, you get to see this analogy now too. So go ahead and, yeah, there you go. So right off the bat, imagine your LLM, your model, as just the potato, right? There's you know, there's substance in it, but it can't do anything, right? So, but what happens when we start giving it access to tools, right? So go ahead and start clicking through, Brent. Let's say we give it the ability to run a database query, right? Which we can do, right? We can write code that can access a database, and then we can show the agent how to do that. What if we can give it API access, right? Like in the example I was given earlier about the GPT-4o model that was able to access a browser and go to TaskRabbit, that kind of stuff. What if we have internal APIs that we're developing and we want to give it the ability to access those? Azure AI Search, right? This is our tool for taking, you know, large amounts of data and vectorizing it and indexing it without getting into too much of what those specific terminologies are. What if we gave the LLM now the ability to rapidly search across not just the data it was trained on, and not just, you know, going out to the internet, but if we had our own corpus of documents or data that it can search across, you know, on a whim, right? This is you know, hint hint. This is a huge use case in the world today. Our world, like basically pretty much almost every day, we're in front of a customer that has that specific use case, right? So you go into the job market knowing how to do that, and you'll blow away any interviewer, right? Because that's what we're all looking for. And then I got one more here. Just, you know, the legs, right? This is an example of just giving it access to code. Let's say you write custom code. Maybe you have proprietary functionality in your organization, and you want your LLM and only your LLM to be able to run this code, right? So you can give it access to that. So yeah, so the next two slides, I was going to talk a little bit about retrieval augmented generation and code generation, right? But I figured I'll go ahead and give like a couple quick demos that I usually prefer to see something rather than you know, just read a bunch of slides. So I'm showing you real demos. I'm going to show you real demos that I've used for customers, and hopefully they all work. But you know, everybody here that's ever done a demo knows that things don't always go as planned. But we'll give it a shot. So I'm going to share my screen here. Just gonna make sure I do the right one. I believe it's this one. Yes. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So what I want to do first is, let me see if I can move this down a little bit. Okay. So and Brent will cover this later, but in Azure, you have access to something called AI Foundry, right? There's a difference between AI Foundry and say Copilot Studio. They're just different use cases. I'm going to show you some examples from AI Foundry, right? So, and you'll be able to do this with your own Azure subscription. I believe is, you know, student subscription. You can get into this area, right? But what I've done is I've created a Foundry project, and what I've done is create a couple of agents, right? One for each demo I'm going to do. This first one, Agent 746, and that has no implicit meaning. It's just a randomly generated name. it's got access to the GPT-4o model, right? And any right now, I've only deployed that model to this agent or to this project, but I can deploy any model that is in Azure, right? Which is like a gazillion of them, right? And these are just a few, right? So you could see there's also things in here like, Sora. So you could actually create an agent that could do videos and do images and that kind of stuff. And it's just there ready for you, right? So you click a button, deploy it, and then when you go to your agent, you basically just assign it what model. So you're basically saying like, hey, I got an agent. Here's the brain I want to use for that agent. But in this case, I've given it nothing else. Even the instructions, the prompt directions are pretty generic, right? There's no access to any knowledge, no access to any actions. In these terms, knowledge is basically just additional knowledge sources, and actions would be like the ability to call functions or to go out to the web or do stuff, right? And right here, what I can do, I can interact with it immediately, right? So that's kind of the selling point here for AI Foundry is when you want to build an agent, you can just go right in without messing with anything else. With just a few clicks of a button, you can just start asking it questions, just like it were your own ChatGPT, right? But without the same kind of prompt restrictions that ChatGPT puts on you, and obviously with access to more context window, right? So I can just say, I'll just give it a quick little query. So list me some good books, and it just lists some books. You could do this in any LLM or in any chatbot agent out there, right? But again, we're not talking agentic. It may have the term agent up here, but it's not really agentic. So let me show you another one. In this case, what I've done is I created an agent that we had a customer, the state of California, that they wanted some way for people that hey, so when someone calls in and they say, hey, like I live in this city and this is going on, who do I contact, what number do I call, what forms do I fill out, anything, right? And it takes time and people to answer questions, and the problem is all the information is on their website. It's relatively easily searchable. It's in a pretty structured format. But it's not, there's people that maybe they don't have easy access to a web browser, or they just don't want to take the time, or they just want to make a quick phone call, right? And they want to talk to a person that will tell them. And so that person just ends up going and searching this stuff, right? So what I did here was I created what's called a Bing grounding, right? What all that means is I gave it access to the Bing web browser. And then from there, I can tell it, and hopefully this is you can see this, but I gave it specific instructions that when someone asks a question, I want you to limit your answers to what you can find on the ca.gov website. And whenever you can, make sure to provide a URL that there or something clickable, something actionable for the user, right? So to test that out, we can just open it up in the playground here. And you can say, I'll just do something like grandma only speaks Spanish and needs a driver's license in Los Angeles. Okay, so theoretically, and because it's an LLM, sometimes it does different things, but in this case, it worked exactly like I'd like it to, right? For your Spanish-speaking grandma, she can visit any California DMV, and they'll offer services in Spanish. It gives me a link to the California DMV right here. It also, in this case, it found one that's in Los Angeles and provides Spanish language services, right? And on top of that, it gave me a link to create an appointment. And it's also providing me these sources for where I got it. And you'll see all these should be from that website. So that's all well and good, but what if I want to have this to where, an actual user can use it? With literally just getting an API key that's already generated for you and an endpoint, you can create a website to do just that, right? So this is running locally. I had to pull down the version I published publicly because I can't give the whole world access to my LLM, right? But in this case, I've got a website running locally that's just connecting to that agent. And so, you can see I ran the same one there just in case the demo went poorly. I had something ready, but now I'll try something else. I'm in Bloomington, and there's a stray dog on my street. Let's see what it does with that. This is going to be slightly slower response because it's actually got to go out from my machine and communicate to the agent and get data back. But so you can see it knew right away that Bloomington happens to be in San Bernardino County. And so it tells me I need to contact San Bernardino County Animal Control, and there's a link right here, right, to animalcare.sbcounty.gov. So, and you can ask it pretty much any kind of question. I tried all sorts of just ambiguous questions, some specific, but this is a use case that takes like just in the time it took me to set up the Bing grounding agent, and that's literally just clicking a few buttons in Azure. I was able to build something that's immediately usable by a customer today. So that's an example of giving it some agency. And so I've got one other example. I won't delve into is too much. So I don't want to eat up too much time. But in another project, we had a customer, a public defender, that they need their lawyers to be able to access case data, which could be, say police records, incident reports, witness statements, and even body cam footage, right? And they need to be able to, for a specific case, be able to say, like, ask questions and get answers, because right now they're trying they got someone's livelihood on the line, and they've got to go through all this documentation to try to gather information and cross-reference things, and that takes a lot of time. So what if we could just, for each case, have all those documents and that body cam footage all just pre-processed and ready for an agent to act on? So I won't get into specifically how I did the indexing. That's a little bit outside the scope of this, but I used a couple other Azure tools. One is a video indexer that can go through a video, grab transcript, and then feed it into our AI search tool. And I used another tool called Document Intelligence, where you can upload documents. And in this case, I just used generic OCR to go through and then index it all. And it's as if it put it all together in one document. And then now this is available to the agent to answer any questions you have. In this case, it's just one case. And what I'll show you real quick, I'll drag it onto the screen here, is, and I'll share this GitHub repository after I'm finished here. I'll put it in the chat. But I've got the raw data that was trained on, right? I've got a body cam footage, and just so you know, everything here is public information. I went to YouTube, I searched in body cam footage, right? And I got about a 10-minute long body cam footage of an incident that happened at a Planet Fitness, which is always fun. And then I got a bunch of templates for like statement forms, evidence logs, police reports, that kind of stuff. And then I used Copilot to just fill it out based on the data from the footage, so that there'd be some consistency here, right? So then I published it as an agent, and all I have to do is, in this knowledge section here, this is where you can tell your agent, hey, here's the additional sources of knowledge I want you to have, right? And in a more complex scenario, you might use some of these other options. But here, I already had a bunch of files that were indexed. And indexing, by the way, in this context, is basically you got a bunch of PDF documents and a video that we consider unstructured data. It's not easy for a machine to understand that. Using those other tools I mentioned, it basically takes it all and puts it into the documents are all in JSON format with a description of what it looks like. And the video transcript is then put into JSON format with timestamps and all that kind of stuff. in a way that a agent can, or an LLM can tokenize and read and answer questions on, right? So I just gave it those files, right? And so then using the same process I mentioned before, sorry, I just put together, this is not nearly as nice of a demo. This one I had to do in just like a couple hours, but I'll spare you playing the entire video, but it basically, a guy with this person's name was at a Platinum Fitness, causing havoc, threatening people. Police officer showed up and tried to stop him, and the guy tried to run the police officer over, and then there was about an 8-minute chase, and then the officers were yelling at him to get out of the car, and they ended up having to tase him to get out of the car. So I give you all that information to then show that I can then ask this agent, I'll say, was the officer injured? Sometimes it gets specific and sometimes it's not, but if it's not, I'll just re-ask it. And here it's referencing the sources, right? Because I also told it in its instructions, when you give an answer, I want you to provide the source too, so that the lawyer knows where to go. So let me just see if I can refresh this, because I don't think I'll give it a shot, and if it's still not working in a minute, I'll just move forward so I'm not wasting your time. Or I can try it in the playground. Oh, actually, yeah, it answered. It was there. I was the whole time, right? So I asked, was the officer injured? And it said, yes, it's officer sustained minor injuries. It was transferred to the hospital. I'm going to say, how was the officer injured? And it should hopefully at this point point out that the suspect attempted to run the officer over and hit the officer with the car. Yeah, so the suspect, including driving, well, yeah. So yeah, the suspect rammed the officer's patrol car, and a taser was deployed. And then I'll say something like, for the last question, I'll say, show me all the times with timestamps that the officers instructed the suspect to get out of the vehicle. And it may be stubborn and only give me a handful of times. There's a lot of, let me try it one more time. It wouldn't be a demo if something didn't break, but I'll try this one more time. But sometimes it'll give me all the times. It was like 10 or something, and sometimes it'll only give me 3 times. So I will try one more time real quick, and then I won't waste any more time if it's not working there. But the important part was it was working for the customer when we ran it, right? So you can see it's actually searching the files. Okay, so and I just realized what happened. There's guardrails built in to our agents, where anytime it thinks that there's violence, sometimes it'll filter that. And so it can get finicky. So let me try one more different way. Was the suspect asked to get out of the vehicle? I'll give this a shot, and we'll see from there. Oh yeah, I don't think it's gonna like that. So yeah, I'll try one more time. Was the suspect asked to get out of the vehicle? You can at least see that it is searching the files for the answers, and then yeah, apologize. One of the 2 demos worked, but essentially what it was doing, it was go through the, it would go through. I can at least show you what those files look like. So what we have is, let's see. I would like to show you the JSON files. So here we go. So for instance, let's look at the case files, and let's just look at the statement form. Right? So this is not a PDF, as you can see, right? But what a Foundry can do in the background is take something like a PDF and put it into a structured format. So it's describing to itself essentially what's on the page, the specific location of the polygons, that kind of stuff, and then the the body cam footage is going to be in, we'll look at so, okay, all right. So you can see here, it basically took the transcript, and it's literally, it's got each of, basically the statements. This is the dispatch talking to the police officer, timestamps for everything. And then, so given that, now it can actually query it as if the whole video was just a document. So I apologize that last demo didn't work, but yeah. And so we won't have to go back to the slide deck, but I can actually go to from here, right? So the next thing what I wanted to show you, and you can feel free to interrupt me if you have questions, if you want, about any of these. But instead of just talking about retrieval augmented generation, I want to show a couple examples of it. And then the next thing is code generation, right? And this is huge for us software developers, right? The ability for it to write its own code. What I want to do is show you an example of, in our case, Copilot, in Visual Studio Code, right? So what I want to do is, I've just got, this is one of my projects, and this is a very common scenario. If you go into software engineering, you're going to be given someone else's code base, right? And you need to figure out what you want to do with it, right? So I'm just going to open up Copilot, and I'm putting it in agent mode, and you can see there's these different models I have. Some are better than others, but for this purposes of this, I'm just going to use GPT 4.1. So I'll say, tell me what this project does. And what it's actually doing is it's scanning through all the code, and it's trying to interpret the code, to figure out what it's doing. So what it's doing is it notices, hey, you've got 5 different projects here, and what each of them are, right? And it's even saying, hey, this one's likely a web-based chatbot, right? So let's dive into that one a little bit more. Let's say, tell me about what language is it in, and what are the various files. And so now it should go through, so it's seeing it says C#, and it's identifying each of the files, right? It's all done in all the backend codes are done in program CS. And then I've got my front end here, right? So now let's go into this index HTML file. This is just my HTML and JavaScript. And I'll say, change the color scheme to red and white or something, I don't know. And in agent mode, what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and go through this my index file, and it will then make the changes, and then it should ask me. And so yeah, it just took a second. And so you can kind of see as it's working. I apologize for the width of the screen. I'm trying to keep the chat window open and the code window open. But what it's done is it says it's done. So I'm going to click on this to see what changes it made. And it went through CSS. And by the way, this demo, I didn't write any of the front end, right? I set up the agent. I went into Visual Studio Code, and I said, hey, I've got an agent at this endpoint. I'll provide the API key in a separate file. Build me an interface that looks like ChatGPT. It did. And I said, okay, now I want to see different bubbles for the user conversations and all this kind of stuff, right? So here I'm going to say to go ahead and keep those changes. And then I could even tell it, build my project, right? And it'll ask for my permission, but it'll just run commands in the terminal window for you. And what I love about it is if there's any errors, in this case, it's just a warning, but if there's errors, it'll say, oh, I found an error, and it'll try to fix it for you, right? So I'll say, I'll have it run it. And in this case, it should just do like a .NET run. And it even found the project file for me. So I'll do that. And hopefully we'll be able to see the changes. So there we go. I refresh it. Now everything's red, right? So that's the future of software engineering. I won't say software engineering. That's the future of programming, right? no more memorizing JavaScript frameworks, no more memorizing how to center a div in CSS. It's literally just do this thing, right? And you still need a human behind the scenes to orchestrate it, to direct it. But it does all the coding for you, and it's keeping track of all these different files. This is a small project. Imagine if you inherited a project with hundreds of pages, right? And let's say, especially if it's something like, let's say React or Angular, where you have dependency injection, all that stuff, and you want to change one thing, but you don't know all the different touch points, right? Imagine being able to go in and say like, hey, I need this text box now to be tied to this other field from the database, and it goes through every single file and does it for you, right? So this is an example of the code generation it can do. You saw it can interpret the code, and it can do any language that was out there when it got trained on, right? Java, C#. Python is kind of like the native language for most models, but as they get more mature, you can do it in any language, right? So those are the demos I wanted to show to you. I figured those would be hopefully a little more fun than just me reading through the slides. In those regards, I apologize that one demo didn't work. I was really hoping it would, but you got to see the other one work. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions on either of those before I hand it back over. Does anybody have any? And if you think of some later, you're welcome, just throw them in the chat.
I have a quick question
Oh,
for
yeah.
both of you. So hang on, I'm gonna make sure Brandon's visible too. So, and this is a little hint to the people who are here as participants. It's looking like AI will be a backbone of the challenges this year. So we already have Microsoft set up in our Slack channel. And I'm wondering if at the end of this, we can tell everybody, and I'll do this on the other workshops as we move forward, that you guys would be available to answer within a 24-hour period. We don't ever expect you to answer it within like a 15-minute thing or anything like that. Would you be able to answer questions? Because I see, like basically everything you showed today were things I'm like, my brain's going for the challenges I already know that are there, going, oh, these are good tools for those challenges. So is that something we can ask you guys to help with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy anytime. I'm excited about this stuff, and even just helping helps me, right? Because these demos are literally things that we built for customers. All of our customers, I should say, are asking for these type of things. We've got tons of customers with thousands and thousands of documents, and they're tired of having to go through them to find information, and it's more complicated. An agent will answer questions what we call semantically. So there's like keyword searching, like say Google does or whatever. Like if you pointed Google at your backlog of documents, it's just going to look for keywords, right? It doesn't understand your meaning. But when you're building an agent, the idea is you want it to understand, what is the person actually asking me about, and then find the data based off of that, right? So that involves going through data. But anyway, I can wax on for days about this topic because it is so valuable right now, right? When we're hiring, when I know most companies are hiring for people that can do quote unquote AI, there is the aspect of model training and stuff, the data science piece, but the practical piece, the revenue driving piece, is building agents that can use those models and more, right? So these are the type of things that I encourage people, whether it's our customers or students or anything, especially if you have access to have some level of access to Azure, go in, go to AI Foundry, like just spin something up and just play around with it, because just that ability to demonstrate, I can build an agent that does more than just answer questions. I can answer your questions based on your proprietary information. That's huge. So I kind of long answer to a short question, but
in case anybody here on the call today is not yet on the Slack channel, I just put the link in there. James, I can give you a direct invite, but you have to send me your email to do that. So
Sure. Yeah. And
I hope to see some more people join. We're getting resources lined up for you to help you with your projects. So
great. And I'll put a couple links here to those, to the Git repositories, the demos, into chat. So.
okay, sounds good. And if I share those on the website later, is that okay?
That should be okay, right, Brent?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Because I usually share the results, share the recording and things of that nature afterwards. Okay, thanks.
Cool. All right, back over to you, Brent. Thank you.
All right, back over to the boring slides. Thanks, James. So hopefully we learned a lot about, agentic AI, and not necessarily from the Microsoft perspective, but more holistically about how AI can be applied to solve some of the challenges that our customers are asking us to help with today. So some of the challenges that Thelma talked about will most definitely take advantage of AI. We're here to help. If you have questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out on Slack. Even as a judge, I want to help out, and I'm very impartial, as Thelma will attest to. We look at things, from the practical application of the technology to solve challenges, not necessarily from a vendor perspective. We're very agnostic from that capable standpoint. So we learned about like agents handling certain tasks, but what's really powerful and where we're really excited with agentic AI going is from this multi-agent system where agents are able to handle specific tasks, but also interact with each other. So when you think about humans kind of managing an army of agents, maybe army is the wrong word, but maybe a collective team of agents that work together to solve certain tasks. The user proxy agent can ask questions if the human interaction is too ambiguous and it needs a little more context around what we're trying to accomplish. And then it can go through this process of planning of what agents actually need to go do, perform tasks and get information back to that proxy agent to kind of aggregate that information and ultimately get a response back to the human on what it's actually trying to accomplish or go forth and perform tasks. So in this example, you can see that maybe the human is asking a question and needs to go find information. So this retrieval agent will go into that AI search and pull back information based on the question and response. And then maybe it needs to go ahead and execute some code. Maybe it needs to send an email out or go update a record in a database. So then it can call another coding agent to go perform that task. And at the end of it, wrap everything back up and give confirmation to the human that this task has been performed. So when you think about the ability for you as somebody doing a knowledge worker based role at your employer, now you can code your own agents to perform tasks on your behalf to make you much more productive. And the great thing is that you can add memory to these agents so they can remember how things were handled in the past. So we don't have to rehash the same conversation over and over again. It's the scenario where you pick up the phone and call somebody for help and you get the front uh, agent and they ask you for all your information. They're great. I need to pass you out to this next person. And then you got to explain the whole thing over again. Like, oh, okay, what am I trying to get to? This memory or shared memory context means that agents can actually have context shared between them so they know that this is the task that I'm trying to perform, so you don't have to rehash that information back between the agents. That shared memory context allows you to retain that across the entire board. And then we think about the domains that I'll use government as an example. There's multiple departments in government. So when you think about the state of Hawaii, there's different agencies that perform things for Health and Human Services, for the Department of Health, Department of Transportation. How do I get my driver's license? When you think about agents working collaboratively to solve tasks, each of them can have their own domain. They can have their own persona that understands the business rules of that particular agency and collectively have this no wrong door approach where I can have a single entry point into all the services that the government offers to give me the information I need back. And it can hand off these information requests to different agents that are working on behalf of that agency within the state. So it can say, hey, I know that this person is receiving benefits from this particular agency, but they may also be eligible for certain benefits from another agency. Let me go query that system. And that agent can handle that query, pull back information from that system of record, say, yes, this person is eligible. Would you like me to preemptively enroll you in those services? So now we don't have to have somebody on the phone or searching for hours and hours to get the services that they're in need of. We can handle these tasks in the back end because we've built these agents with purpose to understand the context of the business rules that are built into them and handle those requests and have that single point of entry for better customer service and ultimately a better experience for both the knowledge workers in those agencies as well as the end consumer of those services. So James covered some of these services. Again, this is a little more Azure centric. So from a Microsoft perspective, when we're looking at building applications, there's a lot of native services that we do offer to build out there. And at the end of this presentation, there's a link for students to sign up to get $100 free credit in Azure. So if you want to test out some of these services, including the Azure OpenAI service that James showed with Foundry and deploying your own AI models or large language models to test out some of these services. That's available to you as a student as well. So some of the capabilities, things from like translation services to document intelligence to parse out, information in documents, speech services where you want to have more of an interactive experience where you can actually talk to a bot versus having to chat. So our visual impaired audiences can take advantage of the language services as well. There's a lot of capability out there. I'm happy to answer any questions, if you have specific things when you're building your solution around the Azure AI stack. The video indexer, as James covered it a little bit earlier, when we had video content, it's not necessarily just the object recognition of what's in there, but it's also looking at what's in the audio frames or what's in the actual video. Can I detect objects that are within the video frame? Can I take that knowledge and actually create those embeddings or that JSON file that James unpacked? You can see all the content that Indexer is pulling out of video or image content to store that in there and make it available for search from a LLM perspective, and then allow you to ask questions about it more intelligently, have it analyze it on the fly in natural language. So no longer do people have to put on the headphones and look at hours and hours of video to find that one instance of, hey, where did Officer Wilson get injured in this police chase? I could just ask that question. It knows where it is. It can return that point in time of that video and also give me some additional context that I may not know about. So in addition to, the time saving of a human having to watch a lot of video, it'll also give me additional context around things I may have missed as a human watching video or listening for things in the audio content. All right, so we already saw some demos. I'm going to jump into two more demos. I will skip the Azure AI Foundry demo because James has already kind of covered that. But what's important about these tools that we're showcasing today is it's really around democratizing AI development. You don't have to be a coder. As you can see from James's demo, we're just asking simple natural language questions about data points that are in there, and we're grounding the responses in that data. So we want to make sure that, as we get started down this process, that, it's not too daunting or scary. We want to get started responsibly for the solutions that you're going to be building with tools that are actually easy to use. So you don't get stuck and you don't have to know vast amounts of coding experience to actually get started. These tools are readily available. So I'm going to switch over to start with Microsoft Copilot Studio. So this is a Microsoft-centric tool that is in use today to build AI solutions. And this is what the UI looks like. So it's very easy for me to get started. And it even has an engine built in where I could give it some instruction from a natural language perspective to build a bot. I don't have to go in and actually customize each individual spot. I could give it some instruction on what I want it to do. So I could say, hey, you are a travel agent who specializes in Hawaii. And I can just give it that simple instruction. Now it's going to try and interpret, it may need more additional context, but if it has enough information, it's actually going to go and start building this on the fly. It also says, hey, if you want to switch to the configure mode at any time, I can go in there and manually set any of the configuration settings for the agent. But behind the scenes, with that simple one phrase, now it's already built an agent on the fly, and I can test this agent right away. It also gives me some sample questions that I may want to ask. It's like, can you help me plan for a week-long trip? Or are there family-friendly trips? Or, island hopping advice? So now I can quickly test this agent out. So if I just click on one, it'll go and populate that, and I'll send it to the bot. And now, within less than a minute, I have an agent running in the background that is using knowledge from the World Wide Web. So again, this is not grounded in any content that I have fed it. It's just pulling things that are readily available on the World Wide Web. So it'll also cite the sources that it's pulling from. So if I have any questions as to the validity of the response that it's generating, I can always click on these to get more information. But it's that easy to actually create a bot within a minute to get started. Now, if I go back and I exit out of this, I go ahead and cancel the creation. I'm going to go back to one that I created to kind of explore, like, how do I ground the data on specific content. And in this case, it was really around building permits on the island of Kauai. So I fed it the building codes from the state website and added that to its knowledge base. And as you can see, I've got things disabled here. So this is a key thing where I can allow it to get creative in the way it responds. And sometimes you'll hear that referred to as hallucinating. So if it doesn't know the answer, you can give it some artistic license to come up with a creative answer that it can pull from the World Wide Web to give me the information. But what I want to do, and what most customers want, is the ability to ground the data. And if it doesn't know the answer, come back to me and say, I don't know. That we don't want it to go off the rails and give incorrect information. One of the common things I hear from customers is that, hey, ChatGPT gives me all this great information and much more information than your Copilot solution does. And yes, that's true, it does. But the guardrails are off on ChatGPT. It's not grounded in your data, and it's given artistic license to go out there and be creative in the way it responds if it doesn't know definitively the answer. What customers from an enterprise perspective want is solid, truthful answers, because there's no margin for error when specifically you're dealing with law enforcement agencies or courts. The answer has to be right because people's lives are on the line. So that's the one differentiation that you'll commonly hear of when you're kind of working with different language models and different AI providers. So this bot here also, has the website that it's pointed at. So, I could look at that and see what's on there, but I'm gonna ask it some questions about, what status of my building permit. So what is the status of permit 22222? And if this was actually hooked up to like a backend system, it would tell me the status of my building permit. It says, okay, well, it's been approved. That's great. But because I have it grounded, it's not allowed to go out into the World Wide Web to answer questions. So I can say, where's the best poke on Kauai? And it's going to go out there and say, well, it should come back and say, I don't know, because I've grounded in that data. So there's no information. Says, okay, if you're looking for information in the county building permits, go back here. So it's good at trying to make up an answer and go out to the World Wide Web to answer that question. So you can kind of see how easy this is to do this. One of the other things you can also add in that James kind of alluded to is like the tools. So I can build out functions or API calls, so it can be more intelligent to process information and give me real-time information on where that is. But the other thing is that multi-agent piece is also built out here. So if your solution is going to encompass multiple agents with very single purpose-driven task execution, you can build those out, but also have this call chain by adding additional agents in here. And I can say, call agents that were built into other solutions. So you can embed those here in the solution pretty easily just from the UI. So it's very easy to get started. So that is the Copilot Studio aspect. So if I go back to the slides here for a minute, we will show you. So AI Foundry, that's what James showed you already. I'll just briefly touch on one thing in Foundry. So again, It's very easy for you to get started in deploying your own models. So if you want to get started, again, link will be at the end of the presentation for you to get started. But as you can see, there's tons of models available in Azure OpenAI. That $100 the credit will likely get you through the solution challenge that you're going to be building here if you want to start using some of these models available without having to put a credit card or spend $1. So it's a great investment if you want to get started or start learning on that. That's available here as well. And then the agents, obviously, that's a capability here that's built in AI Foundry as well. So very similar to Copilot Studio. These agents are pretty easy to create and modify and build as you're kind of going through the process here. And then finally, I wanted to also incorporate some open source solutions here. So Langflow is a very easy kind of WYSIWYG type editor where you can have certain tasks performed and kind of be more configuration driven versus code driven. So if I switch back over to my demonstration here, this is what Langflow looks like. It's very easy for me to kind of rearrange things and put things in perspective. And again, this is all configuration driven. So this Azure endpoint, I'm using the Azure OpenAI. That's actually where I pulled from AI Foundry. So I deployed a Azure OpenAI endpoint, and I'm going to use GPT-4.1. I put my key in here. So from a flow perspective, it says, hey, I'm expecting a user to put chat in here, and I'm going to use this as my prompt. Now, what a prompt is a definition of how the bot should respond to the chat input. I can give it specific instructions on how it should act, how it should respond, what it can and can't answer. The prompt can be very big, but again, it's really around you being purposeful on like what you want these bots to do. And this instruction set is its guardrails. So making sure that it knows what to do and how to handle these responses. It's going to incorporate that message into the inputs here. It's going to process it using the endpoint that I've defined here in Azure Endpoint. So the LLM is going to understand or try to interpret what my intention was, and then it's going to give me an output in the window. So quick, easy way for me to kind of test a bot. I can go into the playground and kind of test this out. And I'm going to start a new chat. And I can say hello. And it's going to try and figure out like, well, what do I mean? It's say, okay, wait, I'm really excited that you're here. Great. So because this is grounded not in specific content, it's open to the World Wide Web. It will go out there and search whatever content is available to that model at the time that it was published. And that's an important thing to also recognize is that when models are published, that's the finite level of knowledge that it has at that point. So if a model was published as of January 1st, 2025, anything that transpired after that date, the LLM will not have access to it. So if I could say, hey, what happened on Groundhog's Day of 2025, it doesn't know because that body of knowledge has stopped as of January 1st. And I'm asking a question about what happened in February. So as you're using your models, make sure that you have the right context around the date that it was published. So the other thing that, James was showing is like, hey, how do I write code? Well, before, as a coder, I would have to go out and find a website that somebody had published some content on and maybe, ask some questions about that. But now I can say, hey, write me a Python script that returns the sum of two digits. So now it's going to use that large language model to actually do code generation. It should give me some examples if this works correctly. And again, this is not a Microsoft tool. This is an open source technology. So Langflow is free for you to use. You just have to sign up with a free account and it's readily available for you to start dragging and dropping things in here. So probably went to sleep here. So again, if things don't go wrong, it wouldn't be a live demo. But hopefully it's going to come back here and give me a Python script here any second now. Well, as we're waiting for paint dry, I'll go back to my default session here, kind of show you. So I asked the same question like, hey, write me a simple hello world app in C#. And it says, sure, absolutely. So it gives me, the code snippets. I can copy and paste this into Visual Studio Code, and off I go. So very easy for me to get started with coding. Let's see if it's still running. So long running process. I'm not sure. There it goes. Okay, great. So again, so very happy to help me. It's very energetic because that's what I put in the prompt. But again, it's going to give me a code sample of like how I get started. So to James's point, the way that software is being developed is rapidly changing. As long as you can use AI as a tool for you to build your skills and differentiate yourself as somebody that's very capable in the market, these are the skills that employers are looking for. So the more that you can demonstrate your ability to leverage AI versus it becoming a dependency for you, the better, because that's what it's really about. You want to be learning continually with AI because AI is learning as well. So it's getting better and better as far as the responses go. But at the same time, we're getting better and better at using it as a tool to advance ourselves in this rapidly changing world. So
Yeah,
real
great.
quick on language,
I'm gonna
lang,
add real quick.
yeah.
There's a saying that you might have, some of you might have heard, but it's very true. Software engineers, well, anybody that AI is useful for, right? You're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone using AI. That's what you want to go to, especially if you're talking about software engineering. You're either using this now, because in a couple less than a year probably, people aren't going to be willing to wait a week to have a website done, right? So that's just a little encouragement there. This is, for all of what AI, hype, maybe just be hype. What's definitely true, 100% true, is it's the next generation of programming languages, right? Just like we don't code in assembly language anymore, pretty soon we're not going to be coding without AI tools anymore. So.
And even beyond the real world examples of employment, think about your educational journey when you have textbooks, volumes of text that you have to ingest and understand and be able to answer questions on in order to pass tests. Think about the ability for you to ingest that content, a chapter of a textbook, into a bot, and then be able to use the voice option to ask questions about it when you're driving or on your commute to and from school. The ability for us to use AI as a learning tool is impressive. And I would say that majority of your instructors going forward are going to be looking at AI as well as an instructional tool. But it's a great sense for you to kind of start learning how to use it even before you get into the world of employment. It's a great setting for you to get comfortable with the tools and to take advantage of everything that's available for you today. All right, so let's go back. I think we are at our final slide. So thank you everybody for sticking with us for this entire time. I know it's a huge investment in time, but we're super excited that you guys are taking this journey with us. And this is such an impactful event. And Thelma and everybody who's put this on every year, it's amazing to see the solution that everybody has built over the last 5 years that I've had the honor of being part of it. We've got some resources here. I know James is going to paste some links in the chat as well. Again, free offer for Azure credit if you want to sign up. It's completely free. You can start deploying your bot services, build your own agents. It's very easy to get started. You can use free open source projects like Langflow. Very easy to start building your agents as well. And again, we'll be available too for any questions you have along. And with that, I'd like to, formally say good luck to everybody who's participating in the challenge this year. And James, any final words?
No, yeah, I mean, you're here, right? So you're in the right place to be. So, I'm super excited to see. I mean, every couple months, it seems like some huge breakthroughs are happening in the world of AI and generative AI. So, you're here, showing interest, and so you're in the right place. And so, best of luck to all you, and happy to help however I can, either in Slack or and in Microsoft in general. Have always been dedicated to helping train up engineers from the the college level, because we know that what you guys learn now is going to be carried into the workforce in the future. And so, yeah. And thanks for listening to me to wax on about a topic I love so much. So it was great talking to all of you.
All right. Well, thank you, Thelma, for allowing us to present, and thank you, audience.
Thank you for doing it. And will you be sharing the PDF of this slide deck with me?
Yes,
Okay.
I will send it your way, and you can disseminate it to
And-
the attendees.
And the Azure for Students, that link will be active so that they
Yes.
could find it. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to share your James's demos as well when I set you guys up. So,
Great.
all right. Any questions from anybody? That was my brain was hurting for a little while. There was a lot of information. So, and it was a little scary when you were talking about the thing going off the rails, but it was asked to do it. So I'm like,
Yeah, that's a fun little adventure to dive into at some point. Just do some searching on some AI emergent behavior, and that'll be enough to spook anybody, but also it's exciting.
So I also want to let everybody who's still online know that eWorld is doing a how to use agentic AI for developing a solution on Saturday. So it's going to be a little more in granular detail about how to actually use this, not just an overview like tonight. So I hope to see, if you're interested in this kind of thing, I hope to see you there. And hint, hint, there's going to be AI challenges this year. So take the time to learn now. Hint, hint. But I also want to thank you, Brent, and you, James, for your time and the effort of putting together a presentation and spending the last 90 minutes with us. So I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Of course, anytime. All right. Well, good luck, everybody.